guide to discovering how culture influences the way people problem solve through the process of genuinely listening and learning from each other's stories. On this episode, I'll be talking with Linsey Gasiewicz, a third-generation Polish American who was born in Buffalo, New York, and was raised in a very proud Polish household. At a young age, Linsey's father empowered her and encouraged her to embrace their diverse Polish American culture through storytelling. There is no surprise that today, Linsey tells brand stories primarily through illustration. Her focus is in storytelling, digital marketing techniques, and production design. Linsey's work is unique because it's heavily inspired by culture and folklore. In this episode, Linsey will be sharing stories about her Polish culture and her first time visiting Poland. Linsey will also talk to us about the trip her great-grandparents made to come to the US, and if it weren't for that journey, she wouldn't exist today. Linsey, welcome to By Design. You're amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. It's so nice to have you. We've been friends for a really long time. We actually worked together at The Spot. For people who don't know, The Spot was a print shop at the University of Central Florida, and I was a student at the time, but you had just recently graduated like a year ago. But today I really want to talk a little bit more about your background and how your family made it to the US. So I want to learn more about your heritage. Can you tell us the story behind your great-grandparents' journey escaping to America?
Okay. So my great grandfather, when he was in Poland, it was during the times where Russia was kind of eradicating, kind of taking over. And it was almost because Russia and Poland kind of had this like back and forth where Poland was almost off the map because of all the countries that were going in and out. But at the time, Russia was knocking on most people's doors and saying, you have to join our army, or, it's basically they were force you into the army or they would probably kill you. So what happened was my great grandfather basically had received that in his area, which was like near Gubin, Poland. It's northern western Poland. And he had that where I guess his brother, at first we heard the story, my great aunt told my family before she kind of passed, that the story was that he stole his brother's ticket to get to America because he had a ticket to America. But we later found out that it was actually the brother gave up his ticket because I don't know if it was because he wasn't forced in yet, but he gave up his ticket so that his brother, I think it was his little brother, would be able to travel to America so that he wouldn't be forced into the army or the military.
Wow, that's so sweet. That's really nice. It's really nice to hear stories about how siblings kind of like stand up for each other, especially during like hard times. So, okay, so he gave him his ticket, and then what happened?
He came to America on boat, and at first he did meet his wife there. That was how they met, and they settled in Lackawanna, New York, which is pretty much, I guess, its own city from Buffalo. And a lot of Polish people kind of came there, including, my grandparents on the other side of my dad's family, which they met in Lackawanna, New York, and they came from Poland as well. And they started, my great grandfather, the one that came from Poland, he started a community, which was the Dom Polski. And so he built the building, and it was almost like a Polish grocery store. He did it with his wife, and he was part of the community along with his my grandfather, which was his son. And they were heavily involved with conversating basically when World War II was happening, providing supplies for Polish people that were fighting against the Germans and the Russians at the World War II, and helping them. And they were sending letters back and forth, and then just down to like community scholarships and, basically helping out any of the Poles that came from that area.
Wow. So it's amazing that you know all of this. I mean, was this kind of like part of your upbringing, just like learning about your history?
A lot of it was. My dad was very proud of being a Polish American because of he's from both sides of his family, they were Polish, and his the great grandmother and grandfather on the other the other side of his family. Sorry, it gets confusing.
No, you're good.
They ended up having 16 children, and all their children were having children, which was my grandmother and everything, before the children were even born. So there was a lot of family, and because of that, he became best friends, if not like brothers, with his first cousins. Because in our family, you almost treat our cousin, even though like they're a second or third, as like our first cousin or brother and sister. We were really close, and we always have reunions. And next year we have our 50th reunion on that side. So he's been really Polish proud of that history that he's had, you know, from the family and everything. And they always celebrate with the holidays and, you know, keep up with American holidays, but also, you know, do all the Polish holidays along with it.
Wow. So, okay, your dad is from Poland, or his side of family is from Poland.
Mm-hmm.
What about your mom?
My mom is actually more Dutch. She was, I would say, probably Pennsylvania or Virginia Dutch. So her side was Dutch. She was a little bit of a mix. Like she has German, Dutch. She even said Native American. So she's kind of all over.
Wow. Wow, that's beautiful. That's a
Mm-hmm.
really nice mix. Wow.
Yeah, I think mostly Dutch and then German. And she says like Irish a little bit. She's all over.
I love that. So, okay, when you were younger, growing up in such a diverse household, how was it? Can you talk a
um,
little bit about that?
well, I don't think my mom knows. It's kind of sad. It's something I wish that I could learn more about my mom's heritage. I know a little bit of my mom's family, which I think she did more German holidays, even though she was more Dutch. But I know more about my dad's heritage because he was, you know, very proud and had the close-knit family. So it's something that I wish I knew more about on my mom's side. I just know very little other than my grandma's maiden name, and I actually don't. Van Natten, I guess, was her my mom's maiden name, and then her mother was Kissinger, which is kind of a German name. So,
That's awesome. So, what are some of the holidays you guys celebrate from on your mom's side and your dad's side?
my mom's side, there isn't really. It's mostly just American holidays. On my dad's side, we have the biggest one is Dingus Day, which I actually got to go to this year. They do the biggest celebration in Buffalo. They're pretty proud over here about their Polish pride. This is a very close niche area. And they have Vigilia. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Vigilia, which is a Christmas thing where the day before Christmas they don't eat any meat. So, and then after on Christmas Day, that's when they eat their meat. So they eat just fish. So they're big on Dingus Day. Dingus Day is the weirdest one. It's also known as Wet Monday, Schmingus Dingus, and it's a weird kind of love story holiday where the people. It started back in Poland, and the tradition. It sounds really bizarre, but if the boy likes the girl, he throws a bucket of water on her and then chases her around with this pussy willow stick and kind of whack her. And it's huge here. They do parades here in the old Polish Square in Eastern Buffalo, and they do it in Lackawanna. And they do some in Florida, I've heard, St. Petersburg. I'm not sure about California, but I know that they do it in areas that a lot of Polish people migrated to. And the Vigilia is, like I said, that one's the Christmas Eve one where you don't eat meat. And you would have to have, I think it was 11 dishes specifically. I did it with my family a couple times this year and there. They're also very big in Easter. So, which is when Dingus Day is on. It's the Monday before Easter, or the Monday after Easter. But they're really big on Easter and the Lent, which happens in between. So before the Lent, they also, you know, kind of have these donuts, which are called pumpkins. And it's weird written and said, but they're like these huge donuts, and they compact them with like a whole bunch of sweet and all this, basically everything that's from the kitchen is how they kind of say it. But they're just really sweet, yummy donuts, and they only come on Fat Tuesday, and it's just kind of like the food before Lent. And then the biggest day, I think, is basically the all-around celebration after Lent, because you're not allowed to do something during that Lent time. So those are the major holidays, and then a few here and there between.
Well, for me, I'm down with anything with donuts. I'm totally down with donuts right
They are
now.
so good. If you ever find one, I remember they had them at Publix once. So if you ever find one, it's called a punchki, and they're really delicious and fattening. So don't eat one on a diet.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So are you still holding on to any of these traditions? Do you still celebrate?
Yes, I do celebrate. I did do Dingus Day this year, which was a lot of fun. A little crazy, but it was a lot of fun. They had a polka band, which is the festival music that they listen to. They had a lot of the people dressed up in the costume, the Polish costume, and it was a lot of fun. And they parade around and carry pussy willow sticks, and it was cute because one of the boys that was watching the parade, he had a squirt gun, because everyone has like squirt guns, and he had like a super soaker, and he was like super soaking like all the people in the parade, and he's like having a blast. So it was a lot of fun to watch.
Oh my God, that sounds like a really nice like water fight going
It
on
would,
that
yeah.
everybody's down on.
It's a really, yeah, it's one of those holidays that people get soaked on. So, and the Vigilia is on Christmas Eve. I usually celebrate it a lot with when my family is around, or when I went to Buffalo last year, I went and celebrated it with my family. So we did the whole vegetarian meal beforehand and presents and all that stuff.
That's really, really nice. So you guys are a tight-knit family. So, and you mentioned that you guys have reunions, and next year is your 50th family reunion. So how did that tradition start, and what do you guys do during your reunion? Like, how long does it take? Where do you guys go? And what do you guys do? Yeah, talk a little bit about that.
Well, the reunion, since we've been doing it, my father actually says it started even before the 50 years, but because of the 16 kids that that were born from my great grandmother, they were really tight knit. So they're like, I think some left here and there, but they were like, we should have a reunion and start a reunion. And I guess from what my dad says, that the secret of the starting the reunion was when one of the family members, he was a guy, he worked for a beer place, and he took a beer truck and was like, hey, we should all meet up. So now that it's happening, it became an annual thing, and it's funny because actually in one of the articles we found, my great grandmother, when that happened, she actually won Mother of the Year in Slackawanna area. Like, it was a newspaper article, which is kind of cool and nifty. I'll have to send you that. But that started, and so once they did that, it kept happening, and then it became a bigger and bigger thing. And I would have to say, because there's so much family, I don't know half of them anymore, because my dad's like, I don't know most of the family that come here, but there's almost like 100 something people that go now, because there were so many, kids and family that kept having kids. So I know a lot of the close. There's only one sibling left out of the 16, by the way, which is
Wow, that's crazy. And where do you host 100 people?
We go to this park called Chestnut Ridge, and it's in Orchard Park, New York. So it's a really nice. Actually, it's a super neat park, and they have a lot of cool like cricks and stuff, and they have I want to say like this really cool ruin almost, where it's like a staircase, and it's called the 100 Steps. So there's a lot of cool history and culture in this area that it's kind of like a unique gem that I don't think a lot of people know about. And then they have this area in the creek that's called the Internal Flame, and it's like this flame in the waterfall that just never goes out, and it's unexplained, I guess, from what I've been told. So
wow, that's like a natural kind of like feature.
mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
so
from
cool.
the
Oh my
oil and
God.
the rocks.
Totally send me pictures, and please send me that news article because I'll put it in the show notes under this episode, and I'm pretty
Okay.
sure people are gonna love it. Yeah, that's really nice. So you said one uncle is still alive. How old is this uncle?
It's actually one aunt. She's still
Oh,
alive. She is. I don't really know exactly. She has to be probably 90 by now.
I love that your family gets together once a year. So it's just a 1 day thing.
Yeah, it's a 1 day. It's actually coming up soon. It's a 1 day thing that happens. It's actually the third week of July.
Is there a dress code?
It's just kind of like go in. We have T-shirts though that we started wearing, and it's like the Klubeck family T-shirt. And I actually proposed being a graphic designer, I proposed a logo to them, which a lot of them really liked. So I'm encouraging it because it's the 50th anniversary, and I was like, we got to do this. And I'm pretty sure I asked my Aunt Betty, who is really big into, like, she usually sets up these events. And I was like, have we broken any world records for having this like long of a reunion? And she's like, probably, but they were gonna get the newspaper once because it was so popular for our family to, keep this tradition up.
Yeah. You know what I love? I have always loved family seals, and I think maybe creating a seal would be nice, you know?
Hmm.
Um, but okay, so during that day, you guys get together, you guys enjoy like Polish food or events like dancing and
We have sometimes they do polka. Like last year was the first, or not last year, but the year before, they kind of requested because we have a lot of the younger kids coming in, so we kind of requested a karaoke. So they started doing karaoke weirdly, and it's a lot of American music, but sometimes they pull out a like polka jam, which is kind of fun to watch.
yeah.
And they do this thing, they call it Polish auction, but it's pretty much like a regular auction. Like they put tickets, like people bring in stuff that they have from their home that they want to get rid of or they bought and they didn't want, and they kind of auction it off. And we always, I think, put up a Polish flag here and there in the picnic area. But most of the times it's just kind of fun and games. We try to keep it, where the kids can play and um, kind of just do activities and we could all like hang out with each other.
Yeah.
Not really, I was kind of sad that there's not always a lot of Polish food. It's been a lot of American food, surprisingly, but I usually, in Vigilia and stuff, we usually eat a lot of the Polish food, like pierogies and golubkis. And golubki is actually not on Vigilia because it's meat, but a lot of the Polish related kind of items, which is like borch and a lot of other ones.
Well, this sounds like so much fun. The only time we don't really do a family reunion, but like for Easter Sunday, because we don't, even though we don't celebrate Easter Sunday, but most of us are like off.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of get together at a park and have like a barbecue, and it's really cool. And there's around 50 people that shows up, and the guys play sports, and the girls like walk around the park and like play around with the kids, and you get to see people you haven't seen for a year, so it's really really fun. Like Easter is the biggest one, and I think for us we haven't had an Easter celebration, I think, for 2 years now, that's like
Oh,
really official. But we haven't been there for 2 years too. But
yeah.
like funny enough that even like people in Florida, they're not like having the barbecue because everybody's just so busy. And it just so happens that people have been getting married on Easter Sunday, so they just been going to like the weddings.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's a
but
good time. It's nice weather.
yeah, it's beautiful because it's like usually end of March, beginning of April, and it's not too hot in Florida, at least.
Hmm.
But other than that, the only time we have family reunions is during the summer, if we travel to Palestine, mostly not Jordan. A lot of my uncles end up like traveling to Palestine because we have like cousins who are old enough to get married now. And for example, this year in July, I have three weddings that one of them is my brother's, and then two of them are my cousins who are siblings that are getting married. And then I have a girl cousin who's getting married in the end of July, but I'm not gonna be able to make it to her wedding, which I'm so sad because she's like one of my bestest
Oh.
like cousins and friend, you know. But I can only take 2 weeks off. So you know how it is. But that's basically the only time we have family reunions, and it's not just one day. You're actually seeing each other for 2 weeks to a month, you know. And it's wedding season in Palestine for my village, so it's a nonstop party, you know. um,
That
this
sounds like a
year,
blast.
oh my God, this year when I go, I'm gonna be posting a lot on Instagram live, and I'm gonna be doing a lot of like Instagram stories. Last year I did it for on my Snapchat, which I no longer use, and it was just like private. And all of
Yeah.
my friends who like, went with me to university, they were like, okay, you used to talk about this, but man, it's a nonstop party. I'm like, believe me, I know, because it's wedding after wedding after wedding, and then each
Oh
wedding is like
yeah.
3 days. It's crazy.
I
Have you?
remember seeing your wedding photos too from when you brought them in. I don't know if I think you were having like a dinner with us. And I remember you having a lot of the photos in a gallery, and it was very beautiful. You did all the henna ink, and it looked like a lot of fun.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, I invited you guys for dinner. That was so much fun. We had a great time.
Definitely good times.
Yeah, definitely. Nice memories. But now you're in New York. I'm in California. Everybody else is still in
I
Florida.
know. Yeah, everyone's kind of either spread out or in Florida still.
We need to
We'll have to
have
have
like,
our own reunion.
yes, there you go. Just gonna say that. All right. So I want to go back a little bit towards like when you were younger. Um, when did you realize that you were different, and how did you embrace your weird?
I think a lot of times when I realized I did different, like the Dingus Day was like this one year was even really different. Was when my family kind of did all these traditions that I guess most people wouldn't celebrate. So it was either whether it was religious or just kind of a holiday. They're just like, oh, that's kind of bizarre, or just learning the language or the weird kind of having polka music, I think is probably one of the weirdest as far as it goes, because a lot of people have like they hear it and it's kind of cheesy and fun and outgoing, and it's like a lot of instruments. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, that's kind of strange. You listen to I don't listen to polka music, but my dad, he kind of encourages it throughout the family. Like he'll listen to polka music and drive my mom and I kind of nuts after a while because we were listening to it. So um, just kind of the wacky kind of traditions and the food a lot of times, which a lot of people end up really liking. So that's kind of a plus.
My God, my kid right now struggles with me sending with him like, Middle Eastern sandwiches,
Oh,
like
really? I'm kind of curious to
za'atar.
know.
Yeah, so like we have something that I grew up on. I love. It's called za'atar, and za'atar is thyme mixed with a spice called sumac, which is red and lemony, kind of zesty, and then it's also mixed with sesame seeds. So like this mixture is kind of like, it looks like a spice, but we spread a little bit of olive oil on a bread, and then you add that spice mixture on top, and you eat it, and it's delicious. And Aiden loves it, but when he goes to school, like his friends are like, what is that? What are you eating? Oh my God. And he's like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. This is delicious.
Well, good for him. I think I remember you giving me a sample of that once, because you
Yeah,
gave
yeah.
me a seasoning and I was like, oh, this is really good. It kind of reminded me of like when you dip the bread in the olive oil in Italian restaurants, except I liked it better because I'm more of a zing kind of person, and it definitely had that lemon kind of. I don't know if it had lemon in it, but it had a very zesty
Yeah.
flavor to it, which was a lot more flavorful.
Yeah.
So,
So the zest actually, it's not from like a lemon. It's the zesty flavor comes from the spice that's called smack. I don't know what it's called in
oh,
English, but it's like a red spice, Um, But yeah, my man, girl, I did not know that I shared so much with you.
I must be a good friend, so
You are
I'll take
totally a
it.
good friend. I love having like girlfriends from different cultures, and like, you know, the fact that we work together, like I love that too, because I got to really get to know you. And speaking of working together, I totally thought you were from a German background until you told me otherwise. And the reason was because when we were working together, you actually planned a trip to go to Germany to see your brother and his
My
wife,
sister-in-law.
and yeah,
Yeah, her.
and their new baby. So can you tell us a little bit about that story? And while you were there, you also went to Poland. So can you share your experience there?
Yeah. I went to Germany. We kind of decided to go to a lot of places, but we wanted to make sure that we went to Poland, which was, gorgeous. So we went to Germany, which was really neat. It was my first time going to Europe. I got to go twice, thankfully, because it was a lot of fun. So I kind of had an advantage because my brother is in the military. So that was a kind of huge plus. It made it more it was inexpensive as far as traveling went, and because he was in the military, he got discount in gas, which was great. So we can actually drive around and experience. And I think the neat part was my brother was kind of on the same page. We didn't really do the whole tour guide thing. We decided that we would drive in a lot of areas and just see what was there. And I think when we went to Germany, we saw a lot of cool castles, which I thought was gorgeous. Something I wouldn't see here, which was pretty neat. And then when we went to France, we kind of stumbled upon. It was like just within driving, we stumbled around a. It was, I want to say it was like a World War II. I don't know what exactly to call it, but
Memorial, kind of.
not a memorial. It was not World War II. Sorry, World War One. It was like a camp thing, and it was called the let's see, un. They said it was hard to attack because of the way it was set up. So it was kind of a nifty looking. I don't know exactly what to call it. I'll have to tell you after once I look into it more. But we went to France, and then we went to like a bunch of wineries. We went to Paris. It was overall a fun trip, and then we went to Amsterdam and Belgium, and then in the end we went to Poland because we want to make sure that we had enough time to kind of go to there. And we started. I was actually really nervous because when I went there, I think I told you before, there was a lot of smoke in the area, and it was during the fall season, so there was a lot of foliage and leaves and everything. So I didn't know this was a thing, but there was a lot of smoke, so I was like, oh, it's not too late to turn back. We were really scared. It was pretty nerve-wracking at first, and I think we even got lost, so we were pretty nervous about where we were going to. It was, I think, probably out of all this, countries I went to, I think it was the most foreign as far as the area was. Not a lot of people spoke English, where in Germany, I think a lot of people did speak English. And so we were really nervous, but we kind of got to the town where we had a hostel at, and the smoke kind of started going away. And it turns out what the smoke was is that they like to burn leaves during fall time. So it wasn't as bad. And it was kind of dark outside, so we didn't really know what was happening. And we got lost, and when I went to the village, we found somebody that finally spoke English, which was kind of scary because we couldn't find our hostel. And my sister-in-law speaks German, which was fantastic, but not a lot of people spoke German there either. So at least in the area I was at. So we found someone that spoke English, and we got directions, and they were super nice. And we ended up eating at the restaurant that was there, and it was like a nice Polish restaurant. It was super cute and quaint, had pierogies and all these different meals, and we wanted to try all the food firsthand, and it was super good. And so we got to our hostel. It was near Krakow, and the area was called it's kind of hard to pronounce, Vigilik or something like that, Vajka, and it's where the salt mines are there. So we went to the salt mines. The town was super gorgeous. Once like we got to see it, it was beautiful. in Krakow area was really beautiful. So we went there and we got to experience it. And I think because a lot of stereotypes and just knowing Poland wasn't a very war-torn area, especially with World War II and World War I and the Russians kind of coming in and trying to eradicate the Soviet Russia and Prussia, and just not being a country once, that it was nice to know that there was a lot of areas that were really gorgeous. So.
Wow, I've seen a lot of the pictures that you've posted, and man, it looks like you went back in time into history and you're just living there, it's really
Yeah.
cool.
And the second time we went more, because south was Krakow, and I heard that our family on the one side was from the southern Poland area. And then we went to Gubin, which was like northern, because we actually found some people with our last name that lived there, which was pretty rare. So we wanted to visit them, but apparently they're in Britain, which is a lot of Poles have lived in Britain in the area. But we went there and we got to see that was because Krakow was a very nice city, but that one you can definitely see like a lot of the influences as far as World War II came, and with Russia, and a lot of the buildings, a lot of the bricks were missing, and there was like this beautiful like church that they were trying to rebuild from a long time ago. It was like the most prehistoric church I've ever seen. It was really neat, but it was empty and there was a lot of bricks missing. And I heard two different stories. I heard the story that Russia was using those bricks to rebuild their area after World War II, so they were using the bricks from Poland. And then I heard another story that they used those bricks for Warsaw. So I don't really know the story that's true. I'm not really quite sure, but we met with a Polish person there, and that's we were trying to figure out what our last name meant, which I know the WICZ, which is which, it's son of, and then he said that because the first name is Gasiewicz, that there were probably fire people, like firemen that like did fire related stuff or gas related areas. So I'm not quite confident about what it means, but that was one of the things he said, that he thinks that's what it means. So son of a fireman or son of a gas person.
Wow. I didn't know that you guys got your last name kind of like based off of the person's profession. That's interesting. That's really cool.
Yeah, because I guess the WICZ, that's like a Slavic thing. So
yeah, that's
interesting.
nice. I'm glad that you guys at least ask what your last name means. Yeah.
So everyone was really nice there too. So it was kind of fun to just like learn, and it was kind of cool because the guy that we found, I think in Gubin they speak more English and German because they're in that area.
So can you can you say your last name, both pronunciations, the American and the Polish?
The American is Gasiewicz, and then in Polish it's Gasiewicz. It's kind of difficult to say in Polish because it's a kind of a tricky language. A lot of consonants next to each other, so it's been always hard to learn the language there.
I struggled a little bit with saying your last name, so forgive me. But
no, you're fine.
yeah, no, totally. You're right. There's a lot of vowels right next to each other, and then you're pronouncing letters that are not even there. But it's interesting because it kind of it is a reminder that it reminds people that where you're from, and it kind of gives you an idea of like your background. And it's really cool that you actually looked for people that carry the same name as you. Because like for me, for example, like a lot of people would carry my last name, and that doesn't mean that they're like from my family,
related.
Yeah,
I'm not really sure if they're related either. I think it could be a common last name in Polish. I know that it's rare here. I mean, actually, I don't know now that I think of it, because I found a lot of people here that live it, and I think it was cool because when I found out that after looking through my last name, the brother that one of the brothers was Albert in English. I don't really know what it's in Polish, and the other one was Martin. It was a really complicated name in Polish, but we found out the other brother later came to America, and he had like kids so we ended up ended up finding the other brother's relatives. So he ended up surviving, which turns out to be good, and had kids. So it was neat to know that there was other people last name and that the brother survived that was in that war-torn area. But I also found some photos of where I think I was like, Google. I am so curious when it comes to family, and I Googled our last name, and I did find one. I think it was the brother, and he ended up fighting either for the Polish army or the Russian army later on. So it was interesting.
Yeah, wow, that's so nice that you actually went back and like looked for the brother and found out what happened to him because did they lose touch, do you think?
They definitely, I think, did lose touch. But I know that he did come to America eventually, so I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
Um,
So during your trip, how did you experience culture shock and what was your experience with culture shock?
I definitely did. I think a lot of my vision, I guess, because you see history books, it's not as it's kind of ignorant, but not really ignorant. I knew that there was big cities, but when you see history book, you think of like Europe as in like this old prehistoric, still kind of in that look. And when you go there, you obviously realize that it's just like here almost. There's a lot of plazas and there's a lot of stores still, but there's definitely a lot of neat architecture and a lot of old castles from that era too. So I thought it was neat, and my perspective was different than what I thought. So, but I definitely went through a lot of just kind of hearing the language, and that your language wasn't like the first language that everyone spoke. And because I actually took German in high school, or not high school, college, and so it was kind of fun to just hear the language, but it kind of scary because I think there was a time that I was trying to find out something and I was like, I don't think I'm saying this right. So
And
it was
I bet you the language that you are taught in school is definitely not the language that people speak because they're probably speaking slang, Yeah.
yeah, of course. And even when I went to Poland, I think me and my brother were trying to order something because there was a time where my sister-in-law and went with us, and then there was the second time it was just me and my brother, and we tried to order something in Polish, and it was just hard because we knew that they didn't speak English, and we were like, well, we didn't want to be rude, so we wanted to try to attempt to learn the language, and we're like pointing to the pastry and be like this one. So it was definitely interesting and scary, and a lot of fun. And I think when I came back, the part I missed the most was getting the pastries, because there's a lot of bakeries in Europe that was my favorite part of going there, is just getting like home baked bakeries and goods that were just really yummy.
After your experience visiting like Poland and Germany and Europe, what misconceptions do you think people have about the Polish culture that you want to bring awareness to?
A lot of the related things that people talk about is the term Polak. It's kind of a term that people use to basically call a Polish person idiot. It was used in World War II when Hitler was basically Hitler and Russia was just trying to make Polish people seem like they're not smart or intelligent. And I mean, I don't really terribly get offended about it, because I know that there's always Polish people even make jokes about it, like, oh, that silly Polak. But I know there's a good portion of people that do get upset about it, and kind of just they're very Polish proud, and a lot of it has to do with like dumb jokes that they're just like, oh, that dumb Polak. And I even heard it myself. They were like, oh, Polish people, they can't even hold a country. And that was when we were off the map. But a lot of it's misconceptions, because there's a lot of really intelligent people that came from Poland, and a lot of philosophers and scientists. I'm trying to think of Copernicus. The one that invented the telescope, I think, was the one that came from Poland. And there's a lot of good, composers that came from there. And even when I went to the Polish salt mines, they talked about how Poland was actually a very well, they were very good fighters and they had a lot of strength. And I think that's another one that people say is that Polish people, they can't fight for their country because but they were actually one of the first to fight in World War One when Hitler kind of started coming over and they were trying to invade. So there's a lot of here and there, but none of them are true. And a lot of Polish people get along with German people and vice versa. So, I think it's just kind of like the German misconceptions where people are like, oh, they used to be Nazis. So, and a lot of German people get offended by that.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that there's a word for calling somebody stupid, except stupid. But
Yeah.
I never, for me at least, somebody who is not from that area, like I don't see that misconception, which is really good, So, but I'm glad that you kind of like cleared that up, and the fact that you say that they were the first ones to like defend themselves against Hitler and everybody in World War I. I mean, it shows that they're super brave, and that's very
Yeah.
interesting. Because being brave is one of the hardest things to do. But
Yeah. Of course.
coming from this really rich background, I see a lot in your illustrations that you are inspired by folklore and your cultural background. So, can you talk a little bit about how you became interested in illustrations?
Well, I came interested in illustrations and folklore. I think illustration started because I used to follow this German illustrator, ironically, but I think I got more into folklore with the Polish because I remember when I was younger, I always saw like a lot of folk related items in the house, and they, like the Polish costume usually involved like a flower crown and like a really cute kind of decorated folk costume, and a lot of the pottery was very folk, and I kind of have some here so I can show you if you ever
Yeah, why
need
don't
to.
you show us right now? Yeah, totally.
Some of them here's like these I have a word, I'll have to give it to you later. There's all the words are so hard to say. I mean, I even have a hard time saying any
Well,
of them.
give them to me and I'll put them in the show notes. Oh,
Of
wow.
course. These are some like the eggs they do around Easter time. They paint eggs, and it's kind of like a folk kind of pattern. I've seen some really complex eggs too. These are pretty simple compared to the ones I've seen online. So
But those are
I've
not
seen,
real eggs, are they?
no, they're just like wooden eggs that they paint over.
Cool.
And they just do kind of a lot of neat patterns. They're really pretty.
Wow.
And I think this one looks mostly like the red color because red is usually the Polish flag and everything.
Mhm.
So they do a lot of like folklore kind of art, and I got this one like actually in Europe when I went to Poland and Germany, and
Wow.
this is like a folk painted. Yeah, see, it's made in Poland. Related, they do a lot of hand painted like pottery, which they're really well known for, and people actually go out of their way to pay a lot of money for this. So I was excited
Yeah.
that I got some. This one's just like one with hearts. I think it's
So
backwards,
pretty.
but
Wow.
that's kind of a lot of where my inspiration comes, and I think because of Polish heritage, it's not really well known. I think people go to Germany when they hear about culture, or going to Europe or France, and I think Poland is more of like a hidden gem. Like people don't really know a lot about Poland. They know about Paris and Germany and Belgium. So it's kind of neat just to experience that kind of culture and get to know a little bit of the area and how it goes in the art and stuff.
No, well, that's why you're here to tell us and inform us. And now I'm curious. Like, I really love castles, and
Hmm.
you talking about them now. I really want to go. It
And
would be
everyone,
so much
and
fun.
from what I've heard, everyone in Poland is really nice. From the culture, I think a lot of people said that some of them are kind of mean, and like I think it's probably a pride thing, but from what I've heard, they're very accepting kind of people. So it's exciting, and they're super Catholic there, so they're pretty religious, but they're very accepting.
Yeah, I mean, like any country, you have,
Hmm.
uh, you know, uh, basically range of people from the best to the worst. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
It's just you and your luck and who you end up meeting
Yeah,
and
that's
what your
exactly what it is.
experiences.
It's who you end up meeting, because even here or wherever you go, it's just you'll run into pretty ignorant people, or you'll run into somebody that's like very welcoming and exciting. So I think that's where a lot of misconceptions happen. It's just who you run into.
Yes,
So
exactly. And luckily, for me at least, I've only run into the most amazing people. Bad
same
people
here.
here and there, but you just brush it off and you move on. Just
I
focus on
think
the
that's what
good.
I liked working about this at the spot. And then even working at the international department, I met so many wonderful people that were from everywhere. I think that was one of my funnest favorite jobs so far, is just seeing all the people that were coming here to like learn English language and improve themselves and be part of the country here, bring back what they know from here to their own country. And it's really neat. And everyone I met, no matter where it was. And some people, like, you hear a lot of stereotypes from people, so you get a little nervous, but it's wonderful that when they don't follow that stereotype, and you know that they're a great kind of person and very welcoming and warm.
Well, if you guys just joined us, Lindsay's talking about how like we met at the University of Central Florida when we were working at a place called The Spot, which was a print shop, and then I moved on to work for a design group, which was part of the student union, and you ended up going working for the international. What was the name of the
Oh,
department?
well, I started out with study abroad. So I worked with a lot of study abroad, which was fun because I got to do posters it made me so, what is it, the travel bug? It made me want to like travel so much. And then they merged the departments, and then I ended up becoming a member of the International Affairs and Global Strategy, long names. They call it IAGS, and I think they're global UCF now. And they just built a new building on campus. It's really beautiful. I left right before the building was built, but it was neat because you get to meet a lot of people that were, learning the language. And I think I became really good friends from someone from India and Spain. And then my coworker, Tricia, I don't know if you know who she is. She worked
Yeah.
in the graphic design department. I worked with
Yes.
her, and she has a very interesting background. Shout out to Tricia. She
Hey,
became
Tricia.
me and her became really good friends. If she ever watches this. And it's really neat because she's from Barbados, so I didn't really know that. And just like learning everyone's culture,
I love how
working
you
at the
said her
spot was
name.
fun.
I don't say her name like that. I call her Trisha for some reason. I don't
I
know
thought it was
why.
Trisha too when I first met her. I was like, oh, hey, Trisha. And then I realized it was Tricia. But and I even actually learned, there was this kid that I met. He was actually from Basque country, and I didn't even know what Basque was until that year. And that's kind of like the French Spanish area. They kind of have, it's in Spain, but they have kind of like their own culture and their own language. And it's I was reading up on it, and it's one of the languages that are the least known language, and it's one of the oldest languages at the same time. So I thought that was so neat, meeting like him and like asking him like what food he ate, and just kind of learning the stories. That was, working at the department was kind of a treasure alone, just being able to experience all those kind of different cultures. And then it just made me have the travel bug hardcore.
Wow. In Jordan, we actually have a group of people, a small group of people, kind of like what you were mentioning. They're called Cherkes. And
Check us. That sounds
called
cool.
Cherkes. Yeah, exactly. And they have their own culture. They're a tight-knit community. They're a small group, and they originated from Russia. So
Oh
it's very
wow.
interesting. Yeah. They're very proud. They try to just stay within the group. They don't like to mix too much, but they're really cool and very, very interesting looking people. They're very cute.
Aw.
But we have Shadik, the review guy, in the chat room who is saying, to be honest, it's kind of scary to go to new places. So, how did you overcome that fear? Because I bet you he's not the only one to be thinking that, like I think that too. It's
I
really
know.
hard to go new places. So, how did you overcome that fear?
Um, I think it helped that my brother was with me. I think it's kind of scary because, you know, like learning, there's so many different languages. I think the best way is I did kind of a lot of research beforehand, and I worked in study abroad department, and I actually used to listen on to their talks. It's just kind of good to have like a knowledge base, a little bit of a basis on like who you like some language that you might learn from there. So just kind of have like basic. They also say don't kind of look like a tourist. Make sure you kind of study up on how they kind of dress there. So it's kind of good to just not stand out too much because you kind of present yourself as a victim a little bit. I think a lot of people wear their backpacks and they don't think about like, you know, someone stealing. And it was interesting hearing like the safety rules. I think I'll have this, if people want to know that, I can probably try to find up on how some of those rules that they were telling me about. But a lot of it is, as sad as it sounds, he mentioned about like not trusting people, like little kids that come up and ask money, and that's kind of sad because you want to help somebody out, but a lot of times they could be either working with somebody. They always work in two from what they told me, so it's kind of a little nerve-wracking, but it's just, you kind of just have to do it. It's just good to, you know, I think one of the other tips was have the number of like the emergency of either in that country, which is usually something different. It's not 911, and kind of have an idea of like had health planned as far as healthcare, bring a first aid kit, and just, I guess, enjoy, because if you overthink it too much, I think that you'll get yourself in trouble.
Well, I
So
think there's also power in numbers. So if you want to travel, like travel with, you know, a group of
friends,
friends,
exactly.
this way you guys can like take care of each other.
Hmm.
I actually like to travel with agencies. So like, you know, it doesn't have to be expensive or anything like that. But
Hmm.
like, I if
Something
I'm
low
visiting,
budget.
yeah, if I'm visiting a place for the first time, I really like to get in touch with like an agency or like a travel agent or somebody who can like a tour guide that can take us to all the touristy places just for the first time, because like you don't want to go to a place and not go to the touristy places, you know?
Exactly. And
And
I think one benefit is that my sister-in-law did speak German, so that also made it a little ease on the travels, because she would help break things down for us for not getting taken advantage of. Um, I think also when I went to Ireland too, like the second time around, and I was nervous that, you know, taking a taxi, because I took a taxi by myself. I actually went to Ireland only by myself, and it was cool because I met a girl that was doing the same thing as I was, except she was going to Paris instead of Germany. She was doing like a 12-hour layover in Ireland, or 10-hour. I think mine was 10 hours, and I went there in the morning and got to explore a city. And she came from UCF as well, so we explored the city together. Even I just met her. It was kind of fun. We're like, let's be travel buddies from now on.
oh my God, I
Um,
love that. That's amazing.
but
Ah,
I know. And then so when we took the taxi back, I was really nervous because I was like, I don't want to, but it turns out that most of the people you kind of encounter are nice. So it's kind of scary, but it's kind of, most of the times it's not as bad as you think, but just you have to figure out a way to get out of it if you do encounter something dangerous or nerve-wracking. So,
the one time that I did a layover where it was like 7 hours and I got out of the airport, was when I went to Paris, and that was the only time I got to see Paris, and it was a blur because
oh,
literally it was me and Aiden at the time was 2 years old. We rented a taxi, and he literally took us to like the hottest spots in Paris, and
oh,
we
nice.
we get down the car out of the car, take some pictures, jump back in, and it was 3 hours, but they went by like this because it just went by so quickly. But it was one of the best trips of my life. And
Oh, I
um
bet.
my
It was
husband
worth
till today,
it.
oh totally, it was so worth it. My husband until today, he's like, anytime I say I want to go visit Paris, he's like, but you're already gone there. I'm like, what are you talking about?
No, I went
No.
to Paris. Is beautiful. I would love to go again if I had a chance. It is kind of
Yeah.
scary. I definitely recommend, like I said, like having emergency numbers like along with you, just kind of like a I would make like a kind of business card size and then laminate it so that you have it around you, and then just have a first aid kit because you don't know if you run into something. I wouldn't touch any of the animals, as
Yeah.
because you might not be familiar with what they might carry.
Yeah, and you might not
That most
have
people.
like the injections that you need,
Oh
Um,
yeah, so.
don't scare Shattuck. Sorry that we scared you, man. I
I
hope
hope I
that
didn't scare you. I would just do it. It's fun.
just do it. It is fun. And
Just do
if
it.
you're gonna do
Nike
it, just
commercial.
okay. Let's get back to you and illustrations. Your style is heavily influenced by folklore. How did you develop your style, and what influenced the direction of your work?
um, I was well. I mentioned how I was heavily influenced as far as just getting the illustration. I think a lot of it. I recently just bought. I go for vintage things. Like I see tins, and a lot of vintage things have a lot of folk art too, which is surprising. I wish I brought some around with me. And I got a book of old stamps, which were really neat from around the world. What was the other question? I'm sorry.
Oh no, how did you develop your style, and what
Oh, how did I
influenced the
develop
direction
it?
of it?
A lot of it, I think, because illustration wise, you kind of have to have a little bit of background in illustration. I took an art, like, the regular drawing 1 and drawing 2 courses, and I actually took an animation course. That was a challenge. And then a lot of it is just kind of practicing over and over, like whether it's gesture or line drawing. They have a bunch of line drawing resources if you can't find like a live art, or just going outside. But I developed it, and then I kind of went from there to Illustrator, and just kind of just to get like a digital perspective. But sometimes I paint, sometimes I screen pen. But I don't know if there's really like, as far as developing my style, I kind of just look at patterns and try to figure out a pattern, whether it's with the illustration or the design, and then just kind of correlate it. And then I always try to find a story with everything. I think that's just kind of like the storytelling aspect that I learned from animation course, and try to build a visual story, whether it's like subtle details or just kind of a regular design. So
That's cool. What advice can you give creatives from different cultures who are trying to find the right work environment? I know that you prefer freelance. What are your recommendations for people who are trying to look for the best work environment? Because being culturally diverse, sometimes it's hard to find a space that is going to encourage you being your own weird.
yeah, I think just kind of research kind of the positions that you're looking at. I think if you have the option to just kind of intern a lot of areas and just kind of explore what fits you. I think freelance works with me because I kind of have like a bizarre style as far as working with. And then I like working for a company too because of the teamwork work aspect. But I think it's just kind of figuring out your own niche as far as what works for you. I was kind of had the unique opportunity to work at UCF, so that was kind of fun because it was a diverse kind of work environment, as far as even working at the spot or working at the international department. So I got to learn a lot of the um, different areas of what people work in background. And I think a lot of areas when it comes to illustration is something I learned in the international department that I kind of hold on to is especially when it comes to graphic design and design work, is being able to just acknowledge the different audiences. No one wants to feel like they don't, when they see an illustration, that they don't belong to it or they can't relate to it. So I think just kind of having that mixed culture aspect helps a lot as far as bringing it to the person, whether, you do a variety, whether it's like having a white person or a mixed person, or I think, or a male or female. So you don't want your audience to be too female, unless that's your target audience, of course. You kind of want to have like a diverse, so you have that audience you speak to.
Yeah, that's cool. So, Linsey, where can people find you online?
You can find me on, I have a Dribble account. It's Luna Linsey, and that's almost the same for my Instagram. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Luna Linsey, and I do a lot of my illustrations on there. And then I also have a website, and it's www.lunalinsey.com. And I'm actually, that's kind of the website that I have up right now, but I am planning on I'm in the works of making a new website on WordPress, so I'm excited to publish that soon. So, but the links will basically translate into that, so I will relink everything to the new site. So, yay!
Yay. Well, thank you, Linsey, for sharing your story with us today. It's been wonderful learning more about your heritage, tradition, and culture. To learn more about Linsey, visit lunalinsey.com and follow her on Dribble and Instagram at lunalinsey. That's LUNALINSEY. Please visit hitbydesign.com/15 to watch today's episode, video recording, show notes, and extras. I want to encourage you to listen positively because when people talk about their culture, it usually involves very intimate aspects of their life. It's an honor to be invited into their safe space, and it becomes your responsibility to protect and uphold the integrity of their stories. I'd love to thank you for joining me. And remember, your normal is weird to people who don't understand you, but your weird is what makes you special. So embrace your weird and spread to others the love and acceptance you want to gain. Until next time, I'm your host, Hiba, and you've been listening to By Design. You did great. That was an hour. Do you believe it?
Oh wow, I was a little nervous, but I was like, I can't think of things right now, but I know,
Okay,
I know what
so
they are. I promise.
I'm so glad to have you. It's really nice to catch up with you. I know, like, distance and space and career, it makes it so hard to stay in touch with people. But
Hmm.
I just feel like this project is kind of bringing me back to like all my friends and getting in contact again and like getting to know you guys on a personal level. I mean, for the longest time, I totally thought that you were from Germany. Sorry, my bad. But
No, it's okay.
we have one person in the, well, it says 3 people watching. But if you guys are interested in the giveaway that Linsey has, please let me know who is watching by typing in your name in the chat room and letting me know that you're interested. Uh, Linsey, you used to intern for Mama Sauce.
Hmm.
Shadow Mama
Yeah,
Sauce.
represent that
And
and
also,
lure.
yes, and then lore and the art piece that you're giving away today. Can you show it to us?
Yeah, I have this one. I actually have another print that I did at Mama Sauce that I could do it as a double giveaway if it comes to it.
Oh yeah,
Um,
if you have it.
and that's the
Oh
screen print
wow.
from I did at Mama Sauce. I think quite a few years back. So
This is
sorry
really
about the
pretty.
background chimes.
It's okay. What's the story behind this piece?
um, I think actually this was more inspired by weirdly an Asian style. I used to follow this Asian pop artist, so I think I added kind of the folk feel with like the manga Asian style that came with this one. Because I
Wow.
also was influenced a lot about the Asian styles, so I thought this was pretty neat. And then I kind of made it in a thank you card, but I thought it was really pretty. So it's made with
It's metallic, right? There's metallic
yeah,
ink in
there's
there.
metallic ink in it, which is neat. And then this one I did at Lure, and this was I was trying to do more of like a folk art with this one. And this one we were trying to kind of coming up with a fun name because the song um the fox what the fox says
Oh
we were
my
trying to figure
god.
out.
That
I think I
song.
looked up online because I was like, at first it was just a fox, and I was like, I need to be, kind of telling a story or saying something, and I was trying to figure out what should I basically use, and then I googled online, and it was like this scientific article about like what a fox really says, and they say yeah, so it's like yeah, wow, wow, and I thought it was kind of a fun saying and a pretty neat thing to use. And this was, oh my gosh, I did it with Natalie, and we started in the morning because it's 4 colors, and we didn't finish until like 9 p.m. and we were so sore after. And she
Wow.
did a cuckoo clock, and I did this one.
So, if you guys are
So
interested, I interviewed Natalie a while back. You just go through the playlist and you can see her interview there. And she also gave away that cuckoo clock, and it was beautiful. It was adorable.
yes,
Yeah. So, Shadik, the review guy, you're the winner. Please contact me with your information, and I'll send them to Linsey to send those 2 art prints your way. Um, Thank you, Linsey, for your time. I just have a few notes to let everybody know about. I have a fun feedback survey that would take about 5 minutes to fill out. Please visit hitbydesign.com/survey or click on the link in the description below. Um, Please make sure to follow at Hit by Design on Instagram and Twitter and sign up to the newsletter for weekly guest introductions at hitbydesign.com. If you like this episode, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel and get notified as soon as I go live. Today, I really want to thank Nick Simbrado from Mama Sauce for sending me this really cool screen printed t-shirt and for supporting the By Design project. It was really nice seeing you, Linsey. It was really nice having you guys. Shadik, please make sure to contact me. All right, bye.
bye.